Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Today, we're going to review a band that Tom and I first got exposed to when they opened for Radiohead. Back in 2008 in St. Louis. We had never heard of Liars, but now they're here today we're going to review them today, with their new album, Mess. Now, a couple years ago, 2012, they came out with Wish You, which is that W something title, but we actually surprisingly liked that album really well. I think we gave it like an upper 70s, which is recommended from us. So, I mean, it was definitely more experimental, a little bit more introspective, introverted in the mood than what you would expect from Liars, their older work. Mess is definitely not along those lines. No. Mess takes that idea that they established on Wish You, that direction that they were going, and says, hey, well, that was good and fun while it lasted. We're going to move into this dance club scene and write these really just big beat, just crazy synthesizer, just dance songs. Like just underground club scene in Poland. That's what I hear about this. Yeah. And if you're Polish and a Velocities in Music fan, tell me if I'm right, because I'm from Iowa and we have no idea what culture is. Just we don't. I'm sorry.
It's true.
All right. Yep. So Tom, what do you think of Mess?
So it was kind of a surprise to hear that shift in style. I mean, I guess I shouldn't have really gone into it with any expectations, because Liars are notorious for taking right turns, just out of nowhere. I mean, they're a band that
not surprised.
They're a band that is constantly evolving their sound. And I will say this, this album I didn't like nearly as much as Wish You. I think it's a little bit of a step back in quality, but I still love that they did this. Simply because they're a band that is not willing to become stagnant, not willing to sit in the same place, and that experimental and adventurous attitude and mindset, I absolutely love.
Well, it's what keeps music fresh. It's what keeps music moving forward, I guess. I mean, if music just reiterated the same shitty ideas over and over again and made them more and more bland, it's kind of like when idiots breed. You don't want that. You want like new ideas. You want artists to take risks, and so I respect Liars as a band because they've always been willing to take risks. Now this record, I mean, it opens up. The first thing you hear is "Take my pants off." That's the first thing you hear.
It's true.
Smell my socks.
Smell my socks.
It's this sample, but Tom, you made a good point about this sample.
At first there was kind of an allure in that. I was kind of, it made me smile when I first heard it. I was like, okay, this is kind of neat. They're doing something interesting here.
It made me hide.
Once I got to like third or fourth listen, though, I kind of realized, I was like, I feel like they're pulling the wool over my eyes, because it's really kind of gimmicky. And simply, not because of the sample itself, but because of the fact that the rest of the song, Mask Maker, the opening track, I don't feel like has a lot else to offer that's memorable.
Well, you don't love that just repetitive boom?
Exactly. The beat is rehashed, it's been done to death, and then they continue to kind of do it to death on the rest of the album. And the vocals aren't super memorable. The synth lines, that kind of like arpeggiated synth line, we've all heard it before. And while I think they're doing it pretty well, it's well produced, it kind of made me realize, I'm like, the only thing they're trying to do different here is with that sample, and just kind of the odd nature of it, because that is what sets that song apart from something that really would be played in a club, in a big city. And I don't know, maybe they're playing that in some weird clubs. That sounds like a club that would be interesting to go to. But that's what sets it apart. And when that's the only thing, to me, that really sets it apart, I feel like they're not really pushing the envelope or shooting for as high as they could be.
Now, we mentioned in our previous review that, Tom, you and I generally don't care about the quality of vocals. As long as it doesn't truly distract from the nature of the music or the quality in the instrumentation or composition, we really, don't care if the vocalist has great pitch or tone or whatnot. We don't care. Angus Andrew, the lead vocalist for Liars, has a very interesting voice. I wouldn't say it's of particular high quality. He's kind of just moaning out, which makes sense since he opened for Radiohead once upon a time. But it adds something to these tracks, and I think it gives it this kind of dark allure. And he kind of is just like groaning over the top of these tracks at times. And but I do think that the color that it gives the tracks makes the tracks a little bit more interesting than your typical club dance song.
Well, yeah, definitely.
So I have to give them that. At the same time, I don't necessarily think it adds much more than that either. It's like adding to the idea of the sound that they're going for. So Liars on Mess are going for this very specific, like, dark dance club scene sound, and they establish that, like, huge with that kind of gimmicky synthesizing device in Mask Maker. But then on the really high quality track that you and I both picked, Box Turn DED. So that track, the second track on the album, is actually I think one of the better tracks. But then but it's still in that same vein.
Yeah.
And they do it really well. But then they continue that for a few more tracks. And man, you can only have so much of the same idea before you start wondering, hey, when the hell is this going to end?
Yeah, and that was really kind of off-putting to me at first also. Now, I ended up liking this album a little bit more than I did at first. It was actually kind of an odd journey because at first I was kind of like, I'm not digging it too much. And then I kind of liked it a little more, and then I kind of liked it a little bit less once I realized that they were rehashing a lot of the same ideas. So I was a little all over the place. I think it really just I think people will go through a similar experience, but people will be different in where they end up in that once they've actually like assess the whole thing.
Right.
But where I really found more quality and kind of redeeming aspects of this album were in tracks like Can't Hear Well and the last track, Left Speaker Blown, which bring things down a little bit.
Right.
The vocals play a bigger role rather than just being kind of back up to the big beats and synth lines. Now you still get some synth in there, but it's a little bit more subtle. And that's what I really liked about Wish You, coming off of that album, was that album had a lot of subtleties.
Yeah.
It had a lot of intricacies. I feel like this one, anything that's going on for the most part is right in your face.
Right.
And so there's not as much to dig at, and when they're doing a lot of the same kind of things, same kind of tempo, same kind of beats, same aesthetic throughout the whole thing, then I'm really going to gravitate towards those parts that deviate.
And I totally agree. I just deviated towards the songs that, like Dark Slide, which is it has no vocals. It's just kind of this experimental electronic track that kind of breaks away from the dance vibe that you get on the first half of the album. And the second half of the album is just inherently more experimental.
Yeah, it really is.
Dress Walker is another track that I really liked. I just felt like these tracks kind of separated from the what you hear on the first part of the album. It's kind of weird how like you do change. I mean, I ended up liking this. I mean, when I first listened to this, I was like, I hate this album. Like, I dreaded listening to Mess. And then slowly I started to like it a bit more after I got over that like initial sugar high or like ice cream cold rush in the back of the deck thing of those first few tracks. I mean, once I got through that and I started picking apart some of the tracks towards the end of the album, there's actually a lot of like decent stuff here. Liars are a talented band. They know what they're doing. They're good songwriters, and this is the risk that they chose to take with Mess. And it really is going to be kind of, I think, a polarizing experience for you, whether or not you like it or not. Now, I think that there's a lot of decent qualities here, a lot of good things to look forward to with Liars, but overall, I didn't feel like this really was the complete listening experience I want to hear.
I agree.
So I'm going to go 66 on this.
I'm going 69.
Okay, so upper 60s from Velocities in Music. Not typically an album we would recommend. So if this is your first time you've ever heard of Liars, avoid this one. Go maybe take if you want to get into the band, take a tour through some of their older works. But you guys might love Mess as well. If you established Liars fans out there, you might love this direction that they're going. Leave us a comment. Tell us your thoughts at www.velocitiesinmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesinmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let us know what albums you'd like to see us review on this channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.